Why Text Complexity Matters by Michelle Hope. As we begin this presentation, take 3 minutes to think about the term text complexity. Brainstorm a list of things that come to mind when you think about this term. Consider, what does complex mean to you and to your teaching practice? How do you incorporate a version of complex text in your classroom? What challenges does understanding and incorporating complex text pose for you? You will notice in your participant packet there is a section entitled Do Now, where you can complete this task. Be prepared to share your observations with your group. Pair share your reflections on text complexity at your tables. As you do so, discuss what you would most like to get out of this session. Be prepared to share some common observations and challenges. Our norms for the session are as follows. Be present and engaged. Be respectful of differences in perspective while challenging each other productively and respectively. Monitor airtime. Make the most of the time that we do have, and stay focused on students. The objectives for this session are as follows. By the end of the session, participants will know what text complexity is and why it matters. They will know how text complexity fits into district models of CLIP, RTI, and Destination 2025. They will understand how the three measures of text complexity can be used together to select text and determine task. And they will be able to utilize the three measures of text complexity to select text and determine both task and necessary instructional supports. So let's begin by thinking about what text complexity is in itself. This definition is provided by the CCSS and refers to text complexity as a level of difficulty experienced by a reader when both reading and comprehending text. What this means is that for teachers, it is not enough that a student pronounce words correctly. They must understand the text at a basic and inferential level, recall key details, and form opinions, arguments, and intertextual connections. Generally speaking, assessing text complexity involves using quantitative and qualitative measures that also take into consideration the reader and task. This definition is found in Appendix A of the Common Core State Standards. So why does text complexity matter? It matters for two primary reasons, for college readiness and for career readiness. In 2006, the American College Testing Service, the ACT, in its influential study, Reading Between the Lines, determined a benchmark score on their reading test. However, only 51% of students scored above this benchmark. This was the lowest in over a decade. Student responses were analyzed to determine what patterns might distinguish students scoring above the benchmark from those scoring below. Despite recent educational efforts focused on critical thinking, the ACT study shows that, at least for this group of nearly 500,000 high school students, critical thinking does not distinguish those who are college and career ready from those who are not. Facility with reading complex text does. It's also worth noting that the ACT determined that the skills needed for career readiness in careers that do not require a college diploma are similar for the skills needed for success in college. So how does text complexity fit into district models of CLIP, RTI, and Destination 2025? In itself, text complexity appears in Standard 10 at the 10 Ready Standards and addresses how to select text and plan rigorous instruction, which aligns directly to the district's Comprehensive Literacy Plan, or CLIP. The overarching premise here is that the engagement with rigorous text and task is necessary for college and career readiness. This is at the core of Destination 2025, which calls for 80% of our seniors to be college and career ready by graduation. CLIP, of course, refers to good first instruction, and RTI provides supports for students struggling to meet those benchmarks. As teachers, we are charged with selecting complex text and engaging students in rigorous instruction, using that text as a way to ensure college and career readiness. Often, teachers do not know what determines complexity or how understanding text complexity in light of student ability can help them plan rigorous instruction. That's what we will address today. Let's begin by talking about the ways to measure text complexity. In general, there are two primary measures: quantitative, which would include computer scoring techniques such as the Lexile measure, and then qualitative measures that examine the meaning of text as well as features of language, text structure, etc. True measures of complexity will also consider the reader and the task, as these will also impact the difficulty of the text. Here are some examples of quantitative measures. The most well-known is a Lexile score. You will find Lexile scores on text appearing in your textbooks, in our curriculum guides, and in articles on websites such as News ELA and readworks.org. When considering the importance of text complexity, using a Lexile as a measure, we can see that the post-secondary demands have Lexile scores in the upper range. Given that Lexile scores range from 5 to around 2,000, when we as teachers at any level neglect to give our students regular practice with complex text, To essentially move them out of their comfort zone as a way to promote growth, we hinder their progress towards college and career readiness. Williamson also indicates the importance of regular practice with complex text by noting the approximate Lexile level of various items one might come across in their personal read-ins. This includes a manual for installing a child safety seat, a tax form, student loan materials, insurance benefit packages, and healthcare discount forms. For teachers, Lexile scores can give us a sense of the level of complexity we can expect to see on the 10 ready tests at each grade level. If we shy away from texts that fall in the appropriate Lexile band because we fear our students are not ready or cannot comprehend at that level, we essentially hold them back. Thus, rather than using the Lexile level to select or not select a text, we should use it to help us select a text that is in the appropriate Lexile level for the grade level that we teach. Despite the benefits of quantitative measures as measures of text complexity, there can be challenges to measures like the Lexile score. Indeed, even though scores like Lexile provide us with common baseline data, this data is not always accurate. Let's look at The Greats of Wrath by John Steinbeck as an example. This novel has a Lexile score of 680, which would equate to a second or third grade level. However, true understanding of the content and significance of this novel would not be achieved by an elementary grade student. It's also worth noting that not all texts have Lexile scores, poetry and plays, for example. This is where qualitative measures come in, as they allow us to supplement our quantitative measures by looking deeper into the text. The second measure of text complexity that we will examine today is the qualitative measure. Qualitative measures consider, among things, content, thematic meaning, text structures, and language features. There are several rubrics that help teachers determine the complexity of a text, ranging from very complex to slightly complex. Many of these also take into account the reader by evaluating the knowledge required to comprehend the text. A copy of a rubric that has been presented by the CCRS has been provided for you in your packet. These rubrics, one for informational and one for literary text, will be used for the purposes of this training. Here is an example of the informational text evaluation rubric. You'll notice that exceedingly complex appears on the left of the rubric and slightly complex appears to the right. This rubric measures 4 categories: text structure, language features, purpose, and knowledge demands. Understanding the complexity of a text, quantitatively and qualitatively, as we've already said, does not give us cause to defer from texts we deem are too complex for our students. Rather, it gives us the information we need to provide scaffolding so that a more complex text becomes more accessible to our students. Once we consider the capabilities of our students in light of the text to be studied, we can determine the task using our standards and the instructional strategies necessary for student success. There are many types of tasks that might be considered complex. Some examples include text-dependent questions taken from Fry and Fisher here, writing in response to text, which might be argumentative, informational, or narrative, and even summarization, which could include the analytic summary and the objective summary. So, in putting everything together, as classroom teachers, we are charged with selecting text based on a Lexile level within the appropriate grade band. We then use qualitative measures in evaluating the actual text to determine the complexity of the content, language, text structure, etc. in light of our actual students. The final piece is to determine the instructional strategies, scaffolds, and supports that we will put in place in order to make this complex text more accessible to our students. Some sample strategies appear now on the screen. In doing this, we are able to give our students, even those struggling or reading below grade level, regular practice with complex text that is outside of their comfort level. This, as research has shown, helps ensure growth. Different supports can be used to accommodate the different needs of our students. So what we know is that grade-appropriate complex text appears on state end-of-year tests, that understanding complex text determines college and career readiness, and that teachers are charged with assigning rigorous tasks that use grade level appropriate text. Teachers should evaluate those texts quantitatively and qualitatively to help determine scaffolds and supports needed to help struggling readers comprehend. If you look at the participant packet, you will see some sample close reading tasks that show how quantitative and qualitative measures can be used to evaluate text and determine task and support. The first, number the stars, corresponds to grades 4 through 5. The second, Amelia Earhart, corresponds to grades 6 through 8. And the third, the Declaration of Independence, to grades 11 through 12. The example task shown here is for Antigone. This is for grades 9 through 10. You will notice that both qualitative and quantitative analyses are shown. The task also addresses the potential challenges for the reader and task. Here you can see that the task also includes the standards that drive the task, as well as key insights, think, objective-driven lessons. Sample text-dependent questions, as well as the writing prompt and possible scaffolds are included also. So, now it's your turn. Use the blank task template and one of the reading passages in your packet, or if you prefer, one that you plan to teach in the coming weeks, and work at your table to complete the task. You will assess each text qualitatively and quantitatively and include the standards as well as a writing prompt. Be sure to consider the necessary supports that your students will need in grappling with this complex text. We will take approximately 7 minutes, and then we will come back together to discuss questions and challenges. a few minutes to discuss at your tables what you found challenging and what you found interesting about the task completed. Prepare to share with the entire group. In closing, use the provided index card to respond to the following questions. What challenges did you and your group have with this task? Do you believe that this is a process that you could realistically implement in your own classroom? And what additional assistance or resources do you think you'll need for this? What do you anticipate the advantages of this being for your own practice? Please remember to write your name and email address on your card if there is a question to which you need an answer. Thank you for your time and attention today. Here are some additional resources. ReadWorks and News ELA are both great resources for text. News ELA is mostly informational, but ReadWorks encompasses all types of text at all levels. Both are free. I've also included a link for the ACT study that appears in the CCSS appendix. This presentation will also be available on the blog www.mrsmhope@edublocks.org.